Good evening. This is our last night of the summer performing.
Very early on, when Donald would call me about the rock and soul shows, he'd say, you know, it was fun and everything, but, you know, it seems like a lot of people are just waiting to hear Steely Dan songs. And that's what we saw the summer before we did the Steely Dan tour. We did a rock and soul tour, and the show was all very well received, but there was a lot of excitement around the Steely Dan songs. When we actually sat down to work on the tunes, we discovered that we didn't actually know some of the chords in some of the songs anymore. So we went out and got, you know, Steely Dan songbooks or whatever we could find at the local music store, and only to discover that the very same missing chords that we couldn't remember were usually incorrectly designated in these books. So there we were with the Steely Dan CDs listening and trying to sort out the missing chords, you know. Originally, our idea was to take our songs and extend them and write long instrumental sections and make them into big blowing vehicles for this great band that we had. And when we actually looked at the tunes, we found out we had kind of already done that in the newer songs. The ones from the later Steely Dan albums already had fairly adventurous arrangements that we didn't really think we were improving on.
I think because I had to sing the songs, you know, you know, it was better for me if the lyrics held up pretty well, you know. In fact, there was one tune where I felt there was a few lines I thought could have been better, so I just rewrote them. I have real trouble with like "Ricky, Don't Lose That Number," you know.
Why?
The lyric, yeah, I don't understand what the lyrics mean anymore.
Who wrote the lyrics?
We did.
Did you know what they meant then?
I'm sure we did, yeah.
Do you have any memory of what they mean?
Well, what's the difference?
He doesn't have to sing them though, you know.
Say.
This guy Pepe's gotta stop rubbing into him. He will make you look shut to something.
Basically, songwriting is songwriting. You know, you're trying to write a good chorus, you're trying to write some good words, nice melody, and that's about the same now as it ever was, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, I think, you know, part of the danger is not to be, you know, let the technology overwhelm what you're doing, and, you know, make sure you use the technology rather than the other way around.
Well, in the 70s, you know, it was kind of hit and miss on many levels, including the performances and, you know, what it would sound like on any given night. Usually we're using somebody else's PA equipment, you know, and it might sound okay and it might not. And generally speaking, kind of disorganized. You know, we were all a bunch of young guys, you know, with various agendas that might be pertaining at any moment, you know, so you never knew what condition your band members would be in that night. And, you know, by the time that we did this again in the 90s, we had our own equipment, our own PA, the tours were well planned, the shows were all in good sounding halls, so it was a vastly different experience.
It was really the band we'd always wanted. We finally managed to get 20 years later. Walter and I both grew up listening to jazz when we were little kids, which was kind of unusual in the early and mid-'60s, unless, I guess, you were being trained as a musician, which, of course, neither of us were being trained.
Yeah, we managed to avoid that. I went to Bard College under the delusion that because there was a lot of people with long hair smoking dope on the campus that there would be a lot of musicians. And only to find when I got there that most of the people at Bard, and I was there on a scholarship, right? It was a very expensive school. Most of the people at the school were rich ne'er-do-wells who couldn't even be bothered to learn how to play the guitar or the harmonica or anything, right? So there was about 4 little bands that were playing around the campus, one style of music or another, and Donald was in all of them. In fact, I think he was the leader of all of them. And so once I figured that out, I approached Donald to offer him my services as a bass player. But unbeknownst to me, the bass player in all of these bands was also the guy that owned all the equipment and was on the entertainment committee and got all the gigs for the bands. So there was no, he was not like an expendable or interchangeable member of those units. So I was kind of out of luck as far as that went. And it was only later when, in one of Donald's bands, he had 3 electric guitar players, all of whom were bad. And that was just what was available kind of at that time. And as it turned out, I ended up replacing those 3 guitar players. Before you even graduated, your last semester at Bard, and I was had been asked to leave, and for reasons of academic non-performance, and we ended up moving out here to Brooklyn.
My girlfriend and I found an apartment. It was $85, studio apartment, that we're approaching right now.
Pretty soon, the building and the neighborhood started to be colonized with would-be hipsters from Donald's circle of acquaintance. We must be getting close now, 9:14. Only a few more buildings. Of course, they all look exactly alike. You getting that feeling, that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
got that
chicken
feeling.
skin kind of thing?
So this is where we used to live. Okay.
904.
That's the window out of which our iguana escaped. Remember that?
Yeah.
The big iguana started crawling up the side of the building.
We can go down to the corner where I was robbed by the 4 guys at Umbrella Point.
That's true.
Remember that?
Yeah. We opened for the Beach Boys and Chuck Berry and Elton John and the Kinks.
Was any part of it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good food, good sex, good times, bad times?
Well, let's see, the food wasn't that good.
I mean, your manager didn't go pick out some girls from the front row and say, come on back to the
Yeah, but
Steely Dan
they were only
suite?
interested in the guitar players,
Oh, guys.
In the morning, we'd go to have breakfast in the hotel, and here's the other guys in the band, and they're sitting there with these girls they picked up the night before, the girls still have the clothes that they wore, what's left of the clothes that they wore to the concert the night before, and here comes the fried eggs and everything. It was,
Did you say, shit, it's our band?
Well, at that point, as you might imagine, one was just as glad that, maybe.
It was a it was a combination of, envy and moral outrage,
Johnny's playroom is a bunker filled with sand. He's become a third world man.
After our 3rd album was successful, we thought to ourselves that we had an audience now that would buy the next record, even if we weren't, traipsing around playing shows in their town.
But did the record company freak out? They weren't,
They got used to it. You know what? As soon as they found out that we started to sell more records when we just stayed home, they got used to it real quick.
you did? You sold more records?
Yeah. The longer we stayed off the road, the more records we sold. As far as Detroit, though,
Yes.
what I said to them you know, on this occasion, I happen to remember, as I said, look, guys, we're in Detroit, you know, it's Motown, you know, we got to play tight, you know.
Got to play it tight?
Got to play tight, yeah.
That was your direction, and it worked.
Well, I just did a lot of the tracks, you know, I got from that show.
Were there other towns where you didn't say we should play tight?
Well,
Usually Don will say, well, we're not in Detroit, so just any old sloppy shit you want to play will be fine tonight.
Aha.
No, that's not true.
And I say, listen, when you guys, tonight when you tune up, try to get close, you know, to each other, you know, in tuning.
We had a great time the last 2 tours that we did, and the tour in Japan as well. So I'm looking forward to doing it again at some point, you know, when we have some new songs to present.
Yeah, I think we want to, you know, get some new material, because, you know, I'm sick of playing these same old songs.
Yeah, now we've played them all, you know, those old songs, and it's time to move on.
Yeah. Excelsior. Onwards and upwards.
It's also the stuff that they put in the packages.
Excelsior, yeah.
Yeah, packing material.